we are about to be joined by our next set of guests. I just need to make sure that I actually have audio after our earlier failure of the other microphone. Folks, always travel with a friend and two microphones. All right, so I now have audio, and let's hope they have audio too. Here we go. So hello and welcome. Joining me now are doctors Andy Rivkin and Jay Greer, two fabulous planetary scientists who also happen to be amazingly creative humans who appreciate alcohol and chemistry and geology, and thus this topic was born. Can you introduce each of yourselves to our audience and tell them a little bit about what you do with your day jobs?
Sure. I'll start. Hi, I'm Dr. Jay Greer. I work at the Planetary Science Institute, which is a nonprofit science research institute that's headquartered in Tucson, Arizona, although I live in Maryland. My research is I study the surface of the moon. Particularly, I look at the ejecta from impact craters to see if I can figure out how old the craters are and how long the ejecta has been on the surface of the moon, how it changes with time. And I do other crater counting efforts and things of that nature. I also do a lot of education and outreach work and a lot of ethics, diversity, and inclusion work. And right now I'm leading one of the EDI focus groups for one of our big moon projects at PSI, which is called TREX, which is currently one of the NASA funded moon projects. So that's what I'm up to.
Okay, so EDI, equality, diversion, and inclusion.
Equity, diversity, and inclusion.
Okay, you
Although
jumped
the
to a.
acronym, they change all the
It,
time. So I mean, it's hard
it's
to keep up.
just wanted to make sure I was still following. Andy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I'm Andy Rivkin. I'm at the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory in Maryland also. I study asteroids. Most of my research is looking at the composition of asteroids using telescopic data, mostly trying to determine their water content, whether they have water in their minerals, whether they have ice on their surfaces. I also am involved with planetary defense issues. I'm one of the investigation team leads for the DART mission, which is going to launch next year and is going to crash into the moon Dimorphos of the Didymos system and basically see how far we can move it. So that's what I'm up to. So I'm also on Team Series. I was happy to hear about Team Series. The shout out to Team Series there. So
Always, you can't make Pluto a planet unless you upgrade Ceres. It's an amazing geological body, but that is not the reason we are here unless we include salty water, which isn't necessarily good in a beverage. So the two of you are hyper creative in all the right ways. Andy, you do a lot of musical work. Jay, you're a poet and storyteller. Um, and you both also appreciate a fine adult beverage. Now, Earth is the only place that I know of that we can age things in a sherry oak cask, but it is not the only place in the solar system where you can find alcohol, although not all alcohol should be drank. Can we just start with where all might one find alcohol in our solar system?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about the different places one might look and for different, like you had mentioned cocktail ingredients, right? So I was thinking through my head about different things. So booze, right? You got to start with the booze,
Yeah,
the basic
yeah.
booze stuff. So there are lots of places to look, but my choice of where I'm going to go for my booze is Titan. That's my choice. That's the largest moon of Saturn, and so I'm going to Titan. First of all, it's 90 degrees Kelvin at the surface, which is super duper cold, which means you don't have to worry about actually chilling your booze because it's already cold. Although we can talk about where we're going to get the ice later. But but like you said, right, there's an issue. It's not just ethanol, which is the kind of booze we drink. There's
Yeah.
also a lot of methanol, which was the stuff that you accidentally make if you're doing, like moonshine or corn squeezins or something, and you mess up, because
Yeah.
you hear these things about how people would go and blind from bootleg gin and things during Prohibition. That's because of methanol. And it's the stuff you don't want to drink. So both of those things are on Titan, because Titan's got that big hydrocarbon haze thick in the
Yes.
atmosphere. It
Yeah.
photodissipates, right? The sun comes in, it breaks up the molecules, and it rains. It actually rains booze on Titan. So that's where
Dang.
I'm going, and assuming that I have the magic to figure out how I'm going to distill out the different alcohols. So there's my choice for alcohol, Andy. What do you think?
Well, see, as a card carrying member of Team Small Bodies, among other things, I'm going to have to go to the Comets. Comet Lovejoy, for instance, has been seen to be, at least when it was warm enough, to be spewing ethyl alcohol into space. So comets also have ice. So I agree. I had thought about the kind of it's alcohol's good, but you need to we're not British. We're not going to drink it warm. So I'm thinking that's where you'd go. Maybe you'd put some kind of surface around to collect the emissions as they are coming off the comet. Kind of get it that way, and then you've kind of already distilled it in a sense, and go from there.
Yeah.
Now, now we're having an interesting discussion about chemistry in the chat, and as an astronomer, I deal with X, Y, and Z being hydrogen, helium, and everything else. So while I acknowledge that alcohols exist, it's because they make noise in my data. Chemically, what is the definition of alcohol? I started to blithely say it's something that has an OH group, and everyone's like, "Oh, water's an alcohol." What is the actual definition of what makes something an alcohol?
Yeah, see, that's funny because I'm also consider myself an astronomer, um, and just a planetary astronomer. But you are correct that it needs an OH, but usually there's also a carbon involved. So that's what keeps water from being an alcohol. Although water is also kind of funny in the sense that it's lots of things, because often when we're when through the history of chemistry, people kind of I feel like they defined things in contrast to water. So
Yeah.
since acids and bases, there's a reason that water is kind of the middle of that scale. Um, but in any case, yeah, alcohol is usually seen as an organic sort of thing. So there's carbon and then there's OH. Um,
Right. I was thinking a lot of what we're talking about here with cocktails, right? Carbon is really the thing that sets it all apart. Almost every ingredient we're going to talk about that you want to have in a cocktail, other than water, probably has carbon in it in some form. And so carbon turns into
Salt.
salt. Yes, very true. Yes, and if you're making a margarita, you need to have your salts, but you can have all kinds of weird salts with interesting impurities in them that give them different flavors. So
Sorry to bust in, which is why where Ceres comes in. So it's not just the salty water; that's where you get the salt for the margarita. Sorry, please.
now I
So
was I was
so
also
I
thinking,
sorry. What I now am hearing is I need to, on the next mission to Ceres, plan a sample return mission of taking my margarita glasses and spinning the rims in the white shiny stuff on Ceres. I'm up for that
actually,
kind of a sample return mission.
I was going to say, you've invented a new sample capture device, right? We just send margarita glasses with damp rims, and we just, stick them in. So we got a new sample. So, but yeah, my background, my original background is also astronomy, right? So my undergraduate degree is in astronomy, and now I'm doing, surface geology on the moon. So Andy and I both switch modes back and forth a lot in our heads, and thinking, read about water and about alcohol. there's a lot of these basic ingredients for booze out there, because
Yeah.
as you know, from the way that, the Big Bang is responsible for our hydrogen, our helium, now a little bit of beryllium, that kind of thing. And then we've got, the kind of synthesis that goes on in supernovae and other things like that produces all of this oxygen and this carbon and this other stuff we have. So as it turns out, oxygen and carbon, I mean, they're nowhere near as abundant as as hydrogen and helium, but they're still hugely abundant in solar systems. So you can make a lot of this stuff.
So we know where to get salt, we know where to get alcohol. And we have salt with many different impurities offering many different flavors. But what other kinds of things might we find to mix in to make our life a bit more interesting?
So I'm sorry if you have already.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. I was just gonna, start talking to give you a little buffer to think there, Rivkin. But if you're ready to go, you just go for it.
I think I am. So I was thinking about this too, because of course some of our favorite beverages, either alcoholic or not, are carbonated, and basically it's CO2, and there are plenty of places to get CO2 in the solar system, although they're not necessarily the best. Going to Venus, Venus has a lot of CO2 and CO2 under pressure, but of course it's very high temperature, so you'd need to. That's maybe not the best way to start out. You could go to Mars. Mars has much colder CO2, but there's a lot less of it. But that's sort of what I'm thinking in those terms. Or there are certainly people that like to have their nitro charged beers, and again there are plenty of nitrogen rich atmospheres. We're living in one, but that might be another good reason to go back to Titan, because again that's going to be colder, and there's plenty of cold nitrogen there ready to get your space brew
So
going.
the question
Yeah, I was also
arises,
thinking. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
if you have plenty of carbon dioxide on Mars, which we appear to, if you have the possibility of liquid, not salty water, which I believe we do, you could make essentially club soda that's very boring and tasteless. I guess it's mineral water, carbonated water on Mars, and almost all the amounts you could possibly wish for.
Yeah. It's just a question of, when Mars, the case, right, is there's the water's there, but it's not flowing over the surface anymore, right? We know it's there, right? We know there's some of it's in the poles and various other places.
Yeah.
It's sequestered away. Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of the same thing. Where are we getting our carbon dioxide? I also was thinking Venus. I mean, clearly, right? There's so much carbon dioxide on Venus, but there's also sulfuric acid in the clouds, and so you're going to have to, deal with that. But yeah, people put dry ice in their drinks. So
Yes.
sure. So in a sense, that's already going to bubble up through your drink, and so you're kind of, it's kind of loosely carbonated with the smoke and stuff. But yeah, Mars. I think the trick with Mars is the chemistry is really bizarre. I think in
Yeah.
ways we weren't necessarily expecting. Like they've been finding like hexanes and weird benzene things in places where they think hydrothermal activity might have taken place. I mean, there could be really weird stuff in the
Yeah.
places in Mars. Not a lot of it, but some of these places, because we're so used to having water around us everywhere. And when that liquid water is gone, things change dramatically. Really weird. So, and I'll just caution you, to check out your Martian drink menu, just to make sure it doesn't have any weird hexanes or benzenes or any of those other zenes in there you don't want to have.
Yeah.
So,
But if you want to do dry cleaning, you're probably okay on Mars. It's the world to go
yeah,
to get a clean suit.
yeah, and it's very sterile. It's a.
As long as
So
you
I
don't-
was also thinking of some ingredients, right? Because we've talked about things like, the water. We know where to get ice. I mean, there's ice all over the place. I mean, for, we can talk more about ice, but I was thinking of two more things. The first one was sugar, right? Because cocktails
Oh,
are usually, so, whether that's what your sugars might be. And so sugar,
Gotta make simple.
yeah, simple syrup, right? They've found different kinds of sugars before, But it looks like it was just about a year ago that they isolated Japanese team isolated some sugars in Murchison, which is a meteorite that has a lot of volatile content. It's famous for its volatile content, in fact, which of course I'm sure you know, but I'm just blabbing on here.
No, I didn't know that. So
Yeah, they found ribose sugar in Murchison, as long as a few other sugars. Ribose is the R in RNA.
So I'm not gonna lie, I naively had I mean, like, I know you can find formaldehyde among the stars, but because in high school chemistry we had to memorize so many different plant cycles and metabolic cycles, in my head, you only get like full on sugars in biology.
Oh, yeah.
I I will never stop being surprised by what our universe finds a way to do.
Yeah, I think this one of the things that made that so interesting for people, right, is exactly where did we get the building blocks for DNA? Was that
Yeah.
all synthesized on Earth, or did most of it come and then just sort of get added together? And we don't actually know that. But the more of these blocks they find, I mean, we already know, and of course, as you know, as an astronomer, amino acids are
They're
really
everywhere.
common. Yeah,
Yes.
they're in the interstellar medium, they're in protoplanetary disks, they're in meteorites, they're all over. But it turns out that they're finding more and more and more of these super complex chains. And ribose isn't even terribly complex. It was just hard to spot because it's one of those things, as you know, when you're doing the tests, it gets lost in other signal. It's hard to see, but it's there. And a bunch
But
of
how
other
does it
sugars in it.
taste?
Apparently, I had to look this up because I didn't know. I'm like, I studied the surface of the moon. It gets sweet because it's a natural sugar. I even asked, I'm like, well, would ribose be sweet? Because I'm making a cocktail. Yes,
Yeah.
and it's even actually edible, and people use it as like a nutritional substance, supplement kind of thing. So yeah, we if we are assuming we've got magical technology, we can get that out of our volatile meteorites like Murchison. So we can even have sweet stuff in our drinks.
I
That
suppose one of the questions might be, and I don't know if this is even a sensible thing because I'm not a chemist. There is the different organic materials have different handedness. There's the left-handed and right-handed, and I'm going to screw this up. We are all left-handed. All of our organic we interact with left-handed materials, as I understand
molecules.
it. Molecules. Sure, that's a good word. And chirality, right? It's the
Yes.
chirality they call it. And I do not know whether sugars also have chirality or if they're too simple. So they do.
They do. I
So
remember so it's I don't know if it counts as chirality, but the you can have sugar that's bent in one way and sugar that's bent in another, and one has calories and your body can use it, and the other one you taste is sweet, but your body's like, I don't understand this, and so no calories.
and so
Right. Of course, it also means that it screws up your water absorption, and maybe it
Well,
doesn't, it kind of goes through the system fast, right? It doesn't quite work right.
so
But yeah, that was one thing they talked about in the article was the chirality that they were looking at for ribose, and they still had to study that because if everything in there is left-handed, that would be really interesting.
yeah,
Or is it?
the trick
yeah.
is that for life, everything is this one way. For all life that we know of on Earth, it's left-handed. But the things that come in from the meteorites and that we see in the cosmos are an even mix. So that's one of the great mysteries, of course, is how and why it has worked out that way, that all life uses this one kind. So as Jay just said, if there's some hint in the meteorites, then that'd be really important and tasty.
So we have bubbly water, we have sugars, we have salts, we have lakes of alcohol. What other ingredients are out there to enjoy?
So
Go ahead, Andy.
I was just gonna follow up on the ice because there is ice everywhere,
Yes.
plus or minus. But I would think that we would want to go somewhere like Enceladus, just because the ice is so pure and clean relative to some other places like Ganymede or Callisto, or I don't know if the moon is, we think that the ice on the moon maybe is covered in a layer of gunk. Certainly, there are places on Mercury where the ice is covered with a layer of gunk. So I might suggest that we go out to
I agree with you.
ice.
I agree with you. Want to go to someplace in the outer solar system with nice, thick, pure ice. I think ideally on a differentiated body, right? Because I'm thinking we want it big enough that it got hot enough that it helped to purify the ice, right? Because if you try to get out of a comet, right, it used to be comets were dirty snowballs, and then now we kind of think of them as snowy dirt balls.
Yeah.
That's going to be some gritty ice. So you want to
that.
something that's differentiated, yeah,
Other-
so that the ice got to flight to the surface and the metals and the other stuff went to the core.
Yeah. Another
Don't use the dirty snow, especially the yellow dirty snow.
That's right.
Speaking of salts, yeah, stay away from that.
So we have a fascinating and parallel question coming in from Ligerbox, who asks, could we make an electrolyte solution for the day after?
Yeah, well, again, electrolytes, right? There's a lot of salts in that, so that's kind of right, replenishing those things that your body lost when you overdid it the day before. And sugars, both sugars and salts, will help a great deal with that, and to make sure you get plenty of water, get your hydration back. Absolutely.
That's right. I think a lot of these so-called ocean worlds out in the outer solar system, that we think perhaps maintain liquid water underneath an ice crust to this day, the water would that would be like what you'd use for grog, that kind of water. But it would be, have these kinds of salts that you're talking about, and might be a good option for that.
Yeah, it wouldn't exactly be brine. It wouldn't be that salty, but it's more like that. It would be more like this, not pure water. So, I was also thinking of wacky ingredients, because that's the thing. When you're a bartender, you're looking for the latest wacky ingredient.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that people have been using, recently in food and cosmetics and stuff is activated charcoal, to turn things black.
Yeah.
Because it's you can it's been used as like, it's supposed to be a detox substance, which, by the way, there's no evidence for that, that it actually does that, or that kind of thing. So just be careful.
Toothpaste that is terrifying to look at.
Yes. So yes, although it can, it's highly absorbent, so it is used in a medical context. If somebody's absorbed a particular kind of poison, they can give them this stuff and it sucks it up. Not all of them work, but so I was thinking, if I've got to go someplace in the solar system and try to find something that I can make that out of, it's Mercury. So I would go to Mercury. Absolutely right. Andy's nodding, right? Because we had suspected for a long time that carbon might be really, really important in Mercury. And it turns out that constituent of the surface that's kind of making these very dark areas and making them very flat spectrally could be graphite.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a form of crystalline carbon. So is activated carbon, or activated charcoal is a form of crystalline carbon, basically. That's been processed so that it's super porous and has lots of surface area. So I'm saying we go to Mercury, we get the graphite, and we can process that to make our drinks trendy and have this weird stuff in it. So that's what I'm thinking, the trendy ingredient.
I'm so disturbed by that. That's all I've got. It is so disturbing. So disturbing. Now I have to admit that this entire thing was inspired by the fact that year after year at the Division of Planetary Sciences conference, there's always that one poster that is related to alcohol and space or beer as seen by a spacecraft instrument. You've given a talk like that along these lines yourself, Jay. And I'm wondering if you can give me any insight on this long tradition of, alongside the cooking steaks over lava, the exploring space with alcohol's history of planetary science, because this is not something that has made it into the popular literature.
Well, Andy, you're a chair of BUIAG. I don't know, maybe you should
mercury egg. Um, I'm not sure that there is a well formed history. I think that it is the case certainly that geologists spend a lot of time out in the field, out of doors, you know. And one of the things that you do in the pre-internet era and the pre-cell phone era, when you're spending time after a long day in front of a campfire, is to pull out the alcohol and
Yeah.
spend the time. So and because as we noted, alcohol is, at least in the strict chemical sense, alcohol is out there. There's a lot of it. It's an obvious thing to look for, and it is. I think from a pop culture point of view, it's gonna be something people are non-astronomers find interesting. To say, hey, we found alcohol in this comet, instead of we found C2H5
Right.
Yeah.
O10 or whatever. Um, and this is maybe not going to be grad school is hard.
It is. It is. And I'm going to take a moment to say finding science funding can be hard,
Hmm.
but all of you make it a little bit easier. Um, and this is part of our CosmoQuest 2020 Hangoutathon. We are spending 36 hours here on twitch.tv/CosmoQuestX and on Now Media Radio, available not just on the airwaves, but also on Apple TV and Roku. So we are here bringing you Astronomy Cast, The Daily Space, I, a myriad of other shows, live launch events, simulcasting, watch parties of major events in space history, like the touch and go at Bennu by Osiris Rex earlier this week. And as much as we'd love to just do this all for free, doing science and science communications takes money. It takes us $150,000 per year to run our programs, and it's plague times, folks, and we're providing our part-time staff who need it with full medical benefits. So we know a lot of people are hurting right now. And just be here, hang out, see if you can win a giveaway, find joy and laughter in science this weekend. But if you're someone who is able to look at your retirement savings and continue to be confused at how good the stock market is going, if you could consider sharing, giving, and helping the science flow, we'd really appreciate it. Every dollar will get stretched absolutely as far as it will go, and maybe a little farther. We do what we can to produce all the science and science engagements for you that we can. Anyways, it's much more interesting talking about the science than seeking the money for the science. So, thank you all for what you have given so far. We are, as Planetary Pan points out, just $508.76 away from bringing in enough money that I will find bacon and point a camera at an open space and allow all of you to see the furry, happy goodness of 120 pounds of Australian shepherds in their fuzzy wiggle butt happiness eating bacon. So, if you want to see that, the math has been corrected. We are $500, and once that doesn't work, I'm confused, but we are some number of dollars away. And yes, it should be, doing math, we are $508.76 away. All right. Thank you. Here we go back to finding a good drink in the solar system. So, beer. Why is it such a good beverage to test your scientific instrumentation upon?
I think to think about your question about a space scientists and booze, right? I
Yeah.
think doing a lot of outreach as we do. Obviously, here we are. Um, trying to trying to say, like Andy said, just putting up a chemical formula for something doesn't make it very interesting. And even scientists in our field who don't do chemistry, they're working on something else, don't necessarily just look at a formula and understand what they're looking at. So you put up something that makes an immediate association personally, right? So beer, again, is a great, is beloved of geologists, because it is also something that you can drink at the end of a long hot day in the desert looking at rocks. You can drink enough of it that you're having fun, you're relaxing, but it's not going to do serious damage. Like we're talking about, basically we're talking about going to Titan and getting ethanol, which is just going to be Everclear. It's going to be straight ever. You don't want to be drinking a lot of that. That's not a good idea. But you can enjoy your beer, relax with your beer. I think that has part of the appeal of beer is that it does have a relatively low alcohol content, and it has a lot of weird stuff in it because, again, the earth with the biology and stuff. I mean, all of
Yeah.
these other planets are it's so straightforward. The earth is not, right? I mean, add a little life into something and then just forget it. It trying to figure out what's going on and little impurities, the way your tongue reacts to tiny things. So beer is complicated, right? I mean, it's got a lot of, you got to have your barley and your hops, and you got to balance sweetness and bitter and all of those tastes all in one, beverage. Plus it's got to be carbonated, and then plus the Brits are going to want to drink it at a different temperature than we want to drink it at, and then it's complicated.
I think it's also interesting that it occurs to me over the course of this conversation that beer is also about as old as astronomy. That human beings have been making beer about as long as human beings have been looking at the sky and making sense of it. I suppose there's prehistoric. Astronomy is almost certainly prehistoric, and beer is plausibly prehistoric. But in any case, both go back a very, very long time. And other than wine, which also goes back a very long time, most of the kind of spirits we talk about in cocktails are really more the age of the beginnings of modern science, sort of 1300s, 1400s, 1500s. We didn't distill alcohol in Egyptian times or in Inca times or in Roman times. It really is kind of came of age at the same kind of time that people started doing science. So beer is also like yeast.
Beer is old. Mm-hmm. Yeah, beer is definitely very old. Good point.
So the Raven Lillian asks, doesn't beer involve yeast? There's not anywhere other than Earth right now that we know of that we can get yeast, is there?
Yeah, yeast is an interesting beast, right? There are other things. I mean, the reason why you want the yeast is basically because it chews stuff up. It produces your, chews your sugars and makes alcohol. But yeast can also add carbonation. So we talked about ways that you can get bubbles and other things to form in your beverage other than yeast. But yeah, yeast is particular. Although Andy, you've been looking at some of these weird compounds in meteorites, right? What
Yeah.
else can we use?
Well, yeah, that would be the thing. It is correct that yeast is a living thing, and so which is part of the reason, again, I suppose, why beer and wine kind of came first, because they took advantage of just the stuff around. So I think our best odds for beer up there is to brew our own. Whether on on the space station or on some research base on the moon or Mars. I have wondered if the first exports from space to Earth would in fact be something like a little microbrewery, a little nano brewery, because I could imagine that it would be there'd be potentially a lot of demand. You don't if you have some collectors who'd be willing to pay, I don't know how much for a case of wine that was, came from the hydroponic garden at Tranquility Base or something.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. We've joked about this before, right? I mean, there's the first two questions you ask. You're on a new world. The first question is it going to eat me? And then the second question is, can I eat it? right? I mean, that's it, right? Those are the first two questions.
That's right.
So
The third question was, when can I eat it?
yes. Yeah, I mean, imagine what people would do. I mean, because we were just talking about activated charcoal, right, in drinks and stuff is this, fancy, ingredient du jour. People would be like, oh, hey, I want a pinch of moon dust in my cocktail kind of thing, right? And which I strongly suggest against. But people, they think that was pretty awesome. Beer, though, beer's tough. Beer is going to require us to take that stuff up from the earth. Cocktails, by their nature, you can break them down into pieces and add them together, but beer, you've got to make it wholesale from the beginning.
And there was some really good bacon, and I'm not bacon, sorry. I have bacon on the mind, clearly. um, there was really good beer that was unfortunately short run, and I loved it. And it was from a company that's name begins with the letter N, which is not useful. And they used yeast that was sent up into space
Yeah.
to make a short run beer. And so we know that it was Ninkasi. Yes, Black Mesa
Yeah.
Labs has it correct. Ninkasi beer. It was fabulous. I'm very bitter that you can't get those bitters anymore. Um, and so we know yeast can survive the trip and still make incredible beer. So but this also means that there's no making Belgian beers on Mars, which at least not until we like engineer yeasts to live in the wild in really weird low pressure, density, temperature circumstances.
Or
And
learn how to
thank
make
you.
grades, I
Go
guess.
ahead. I want to thank Michael and Julie for the donations. We are getting closer to the $5,000 Puppers Get Bacon boundary point.
Nice.
So we just have 8 more minutes before we go to mines on the 49s and continue our great Minecraft scale model of the solar system. If you were to build a pub somewhere among the planets, where would you place this pub?
I mean, the first thing I'm going to say is the Virgin Islands, but I don't think that's quite where you were going. So,
Okay, let's say not on Earth.
um, I might actually go with Phobos. I might actually go with Phobos because you'd have this amazing view. It would be kind of easy to get in and out. You're not too far from Earth or Mars. Thinking about where we live now, we're not too far from Baltimore or Washington, so I'm assuming it's kind of the same. I'm not going to say which planet is the analog of which city. And Phobos itself might actually be able to serve as a source of ingredients, depending on the kinds of ingredients we need. We don't really yet know what Phobos is made of, but one of the possibilities that is still possible. That's why it's a possibility. Is that it's like one of these asteroids that has a lot of water, that might have some of these sugars and the like that we talked about. So I'd go with Phobos. I've always had a soft spot for Phobos.
I like this. I think that is an excellent idea. Now the question is, would it be on Phobos or inside Phobos? I'm a fan of hollowing asteroids, and Phobos has that asteroid-like motif going for it.
Yeah, I think it would depend. I mean, one of the key things is that you would need the view of Mars. So if it's inside, I mean, it would be on the Mars-facing side anyway. You'd need to have some sort of picture window or some opening to
We've
Mars.
talked about this when we've traveled, actually. The thing is, everybody's like, they go to Paris and they want to go up the Eiffel Tower. Well, the one thing you can't see when you're on the Eiffel Tower is the Eiffel Tower.
Yes.
So interestingly, right, that's, so when I was thinking about where I would put a bar, I would want to put it on a space station that's in a hugely eccentric orbit around Saturn, so that it goes out and you get great views of Saturn when it's way far away, and then it comes in and plunges through the rings and comes out again, so that you can like hang out at this bar and get this incredibly changing view where you see Saturn and it gets closer, and then you kind of go around the ring, then you come back out. So it's you gotta be, if you're actually on Saturn or on the moon, you don't get to see it. You gotta have perspective.
And that would be a really long meal if you're orbiting Saturn. I'm thinking more like you need a hotel room, great place to honeymoon.
Oh yeah, it's a resort. You gotta have to put the whole resort up there, multiple bars to choose from, and drink that, the stuff, it's, drink it right from Titan. They import it right there from Titan.
Well, I suppose
I think we're onto something.
The Phobos one would be more like the rotating restaurant at the top of the...
Yeah, exactly. You could do that thing where you have the windows around the outside and you could just, that'd be awesome.
That is amazing. So we have just 4 minutes left before we go to the mines on the 49s. Before we go, you guys both do so much amazing science and creativity. How can people best find out about the remarkable things that you're up to? Andy, I'm going to go to you first.
I'm on Twitter a lot. So you can follow me if you like. I'm at, I don't know if you have that or could flash it up or whatever. I'm at AS Rivkin, at AS Rivkin at Twitter. I actually have some music on Spotify, I guess. So if you search on my name, you can come up with that music on Spotify. It's Andy Rivkin and the Godonkin Band. Those are the main things that I do that are not science. And then science-wise, you can find me on, Google Scholar or other places like that.
That all sounds good. Jay, where can they go to find your stuff?
I suppose Twitter's the place to start. I just put my handle up in my name there where it says Jay Greer, and then it's got my pronouns. And then afterwards, it has my handle, which is at Grierja, at Grierja. So that's me on Twitter. That's a good place to start. I have a writing blog where I do genre-related stuff. That I put up stuff that I do my science if I'm having fun. Right now I'm reviewing Halloween movies because I write horror and sci-fi as well as poetry. And if I'm doing an observing run, Andy and I sometimes are on runs together. I'll talk about that stuff there. Papers I've read. I talked about naming conventions and stuff for Pluto on there just for fun. So that's one place you can check out and see some of the stuff that I might be doing. My professional page is at the Planetary Science Institute on their staff page. So that's a place to look for things. And otherwise, we work on any number of different NASA projects that each may have its own outreach event, say like, our relationship with CosmoQuest. So sometimes you'll catch us here or you'll catch us in other outreach events, depending on where those are. So you can keep your eyes out for those.
And if you go back in the CosmoQuest blog, Jay wrote a ton of articles for us back when we had significantly more funding than we have today. NASA giveth, NASA taketh away. This is the reality of research. And Jay was a major part of building the community that you see here that we are so very proud of. And I don't think we're going to blow past our donation goal this year, but we are putting in a number of federal grants as well. And here's to hoping that we can keep building on that foundation that you helped us lay. So thank you for being one of the people that helped set the tone of our community.
Thank you.
And glad to be here. I still don't have a Minecrafter. How do I do mines on the 49s without a Minecrafter? We have raiders. Where are we getting raiders from? We have a raiding party of 69 from Rocket Sage. The Chirality community is in the house. Welcome, raiders.
Raiders.
If you don't know what it is that you just stumbled into, this is the CosmoQuest Hangout-a-thon. We are raising money to keep science and science education going into the future. Um, Rocket Sage is a fellow Twitch streamer. She does amazing work talking about minerals, the latest papers in earth geology. She sometimes gets into planetary science. And oh, I hear a Minecrafter coming. I hear a Minecrafter coming. And so since I know that we have Rocket Sage's community and we're still waiting for the Minecrafter to get set up, um, Jay and Andy, what's your favorite rock?
Favorite rock. Oh, it's for me. I've got a favorite rock, and it's a little weird because I am a lunar scientist, and there isn't a substantial amount of olivine on the moon, but it's olivine. It's olivine, which is in its gemstone form is peridot or peridot, depending on how you pronounce that. It's the green one. I think that's September's birthstone, and that's because I've got so many stories about it, but it's the green thing that's in those gorgeous meteorites called pallasites that makes them look like stained glass windows. It's the mantle of the earth is predominantly composed of this stuff. It's a fascinating mineral. So I'm down for olivine.
That is awesome. What about you, Andy? What's your favorite mineral?
Boy, I guess I'm gonna say serpentine. Serpentine is
Okay,
a hydrated mineral.
that
It
means it had water.
had water. It was created by the interaction of water and minerals like olivine. Actually, it is the mineral on the asteroids that I've studied during a lot of my career, and it would seem ungrateful for me not to make that my favorite mineral. So that's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah,
That's
I
awesome.
understand. Yeah.
So we now have our Minecrafter. We are ready to go and see how our model solar system build is going. Andy, Jay, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you bringing your brains and
And your
helping us
booze.
figure out. Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. So thank you so much. And I guess I will see you around the internet.
Sounds great. Thanks, Pamela. Keep up the good work. And we'll
Thank
see.
you.
Yeah. Good
Bye
luck.
bye.
Best wishes for your fundraiser. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Hello, Kerbal.
Yes, it is Kerbal01. And welcome back to the Minds on the Nines. We are starting the Minds on the Nines as we always have in front of the Welcome Center. I don't think anything's changed. Let's go check on the telescope. See if anything has changed in there. Looks like someone started to flesh out the interior and made some steps. I don't think anything else has changed in there. The space shuttle hasn't changed, but it looks like someone or several people, it looks like, are making a runway. And the library is gaining floors, slowly and steadily. And it looks like we have a gigantic rocket over here with appropriate flames. It looks like SpaceX's Big Falcon rocket and Big Falcon first stage. And we have the beginnings of a rocket on the launch pad. Let's head to space. And we'll go to Mercury first. I think everything has been replaced. Nearly everything has been put on Mercury. It is looking pretty good. Here's Venus. It is a lot more complete than when I last saw it. But there's about half of it left to do, and there's someone putting blocks on it right now. Earth is well along. Got a continent over there. I don't see any class, so I think let's just have some more details to fill in. And now we're at Mars. And we have a little blue police box, in addition to the potatoes and the campsite. And a little button named Phobos. That's a nice little detail. Looks like we actually have an asteroid in the asteroid belt. This is Ceres. Neat. And Bennu might be a button over here. Let's check on Jupiter. There's quite a bit done. Looks like there's a internal core. That wasn't there when I last saw it. Great red spot.
So, So Kerbal, we're getting the question: has Olympus Mons been put on Mars? Do you know?
I do not know if Olympus Mons has been put on. I suspect that the detail is too small.
Yeah, I tend
We
to
could put a
agree, but
sign there.
there's always wishful thinking. There's always wishful thinking.
More details going on Saturn and its rings. There's quite a lot of ring to fill in. And now let's head to Uranus. Uranus is a lot different. It looks to be mostly complete. What does this sign say? I suspect it's a moon.
No, that's the sun that away North Pole. So the moons of Uranus are actually pretty big. I think they're still on our list of things to get started. Uranus is blue. It's blue.
Yeah, pretty uniform blues, although there were some specks of white I saw in a reference image, so those could be added.
Yeah. We're gonna have Kim Cartier on tomorrow to talk to us about Uranus and Neptune. Are they really all that different?
And
Anytime
here's
you put
Neptune. It also looks
Yes.
pretty much complete.
That's awesome. What are the bits of white on it? Are those clouds?
I suspect so. It's diorite, I think. Diorite glass. And it has a
So-
core too.
I have something to share with the audience. I was just brought 3 pieces of warm bacon, one for each dog. The dogs cannot get the bacon until we hit $5,000 in donations. If we can get to $5,000 in donations, there will be a dog cam and jubilant Australian Shepherds, 120 pounds of them with wiggle butts. They're already here, folks. The dogs know there's bacon. All right, continue, Kerbal. I'm sorry. You've taken us back to the Welcome Center. I love
Yeah,
how it's grown up.
yes, that was all of the planets. And over here, I am starting to do something. I want to do a half-scale version of the NASA Vehicle Assembly Building, so I'm starting to
Oh,
clear an
cool.
area over here. But that's just train moving so far. Haven't started building it. And that is everything. So that I have.
Awesome. Very awesome. So thank you, Kerbal. What are you going to put the flag on the VAB? That's basically all I've got to ask.
Probably, yeah.
That is awesome. I can't wait to see. And this has just been amazing. You started the day with me, and I'm 1 hour from handing the reins over to Annie Wilson. And it's good to have you here at the end of the day as well. And you will be back tomorrow talking about kerbling space, because you don't just
Yes.
Minecraft, you also build spaceships.
I do build spaceships.
All right. Well, I have a camera adjustment to make. Pardon me, everyone, for the reach. I bumped my camera at some point. Live television, people, live television. There we go. Now I'm just going to be crooked. That's okay. So thank you so much, Kerbal. I'm going to let you get back to building. I look forward to seeing how your VAB grows up in an empty field of awesome.
Thank you.
Have a great evening, and